Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Black Adam. This movie is directed by Wam Serra, who previously directed Jungle Cruise and Unknown. This movie stars Dwayne Johnson, Sarah Shahi, with Aldous Hodge and Pierce Brosnan. The plot of this movie takes place in Kahndaq, which is like the DC Universe's version of Egypt. And after Teth Adam is freed for being locked away after 5,000 years, he finds himself in a strange new world. His home country is now filled with technology, these beings called superheroes, but also his people are being oppressed by this group called the Intergang, and let's just say that none of that sits well with him. So going into this movie, my only hope, my only expectation, the thing I was looking forward to the most, was that Warner Brothers, DC, was going to take this villain, this anti-hero sometimes, but this villain of Teth Adam, Black Adam, and they were going to make him feel like a villain, feel like a bad guy that doesn't adhere by good guy rules, a villain that feels like he can do whatever he wants, take matters into his own hands. I didn't want them to make this another Maleficent, which is the movie that I feel like started it all as far as taking bad guys and making them misunderstood. I wanted this to appear as if he was a bad guy in a world full of heroes. Did they do that? Yes, they did. And this movie is awesome because of that. This film doesn't take an anti-hero and by the end of the movie have them go, well, you know what? You're right. I was doing things wrong the whole time, so I guess I'll change my ways. No, this is like you have a villain who's going to go around just wrecking people, and then by the end, they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to change the way I do things, but I realize now the kind of world that I'm in. And that was it. And I was so happy that they did that, because I'm a huge fan of characters Black Adam, Tal Sinestro, and Eric Lencher, Magneto, as you can see up there. And I was just afraid that they were going to take these bad guys, these ruthless, evil bad guys, and give them shades of gray, or have them become a good guy by the end of the story. And I'm very glad they didn't do that. Also, I was very surprised that the director of Jungle Cruise, a bunch of Liam Neeson thrillers, and The Orphan directed this movie. I had no idea who the director was until the end credits, and I'm like, whoa, I'm Serra, the guy that just did all those Liam Neeson movies. I was surprised, but I'm glad this movie turned out the way it did. So let me start with the acting in this movie. Dwayne Johnson is great as Teth Adam. There are a couple scenes where he acts like the Terminator in Terminator 2, but that's okay, because you gotta have a fish out of water type scene like they did in Wonder Woman, where you have a character that's been away for a long time and they wake up in a modern contemporary society and they have to adapt to a couple things. So there are some scenes where he meets a boy played by Bodhi Sabaki, who isn't, I would say probably he's the weakest part of this movie, just because his delivery and his lines of dialogue are a little cringy, but he's like a John Connor type character where he teaches Black Adam things you can do, things you're not supposed to do. He also kind of says, hey, you know, that's cool, you need a catchphrase, because this kid is a fan of the modern superheroes, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and so he sees heroes in that shape, that form, and so he kind of tries to mold Black Adam into one of those heroes, which it doesn't take, or at least for the most part, it doesn't take, but he, tries to get Black Adam to have a catchphrase. Tell them the Man in Black sent you. And there's some comedy there, because Teth Adam tries to use that a couple times, and sometimes it doesn't work, but then there's one time where it's like, yeah, you nailed that. So, because the fish out of water elements, Black Adam is a little, I would say, he's kind of like a child learning about his surroundings and what he can and cannot do. But other than that, he's unflinchingly bad. He's just wrecking dudes. And the one thing I liked about this movie is that the kills were all different. It wasn't just him blasting people with lightning or crushing some dude's head with a rock. There's a lot of scenes where he punches through a rock to get to somebody, or he flings them, and the comedy was to a minimum. It was there, it was sprinkled throughout, but it wasn't a comedic movie. It was not Shazam, and I kind of felt like going into this film, the producers wanted to make this the anti-Shazam, which it was, and I also liked how this tied into that lore. You had Djimon Hounsou back as the wizard Shazam, so it explained that there were 7 wizards, and how if you watch Shazam, in one of the deleted scenes, there's a throne that doesn't have anybody on it. It's because that's Black Adam's throne. So they tied that all together nicely, and I liked how the heroes in this movie weren't really trying to change Teth Adam, but they were trying to make him realize that you don't always have to go around killing people, that there are certain ways you can deal with certain situations. And I liked how Teth Adam wasn't just always, no, I'm going to do things my way because this is my country. In the comics, that's how he is. He only cares about Kahndaq. Everything else that happens outside of it, he could give a crap about. But I liked how he was able to compromise. He was able to realize in order to get certain things done, you have to kind of bend the rules or go against your instincts right away. Just different ways to handle certain situations. As far as the heroes in this movie go, I liked them. I liked how it wasn't just a Superman-like character coming in and saying, Black Adam? No. No, you can't do that. There were heroes that were trying to tell him, hey, help us with this situation, and then we'll leave you be. I liked how the heroes were not the Justice League, but the Justice Society. A group of heroes that a lot of people, unless you read comics, probably don't know about. So I liked how they were depicted and represented here. You had essentially their leader, Hawkman, played by Aldous Hodge, and you had Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, and then you had 2 of the newer members, Atom Smasher and Cyclone. Cyclone was played by Quintessa Swindell. I liked how you had the older, experienced heroes, but also the younger, newer heroes. Atom Smasher was kind of like the Flash in this movie, where he knew he had a job to do, he had a costume, he knew what his powers were, but he wasn't used to saving the world type scenario. He wasn't used to the group aspect. And yes, his costume is really cool, but his mask, the thing he wears on his head, just color that thing red and black and you have Deadpool's mask. No joke. It looks very, very similar to it. I couldn't help notice every time he was on screen, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Deadpool's mask. It looks practically identical. But the hero aspect in this movie is really good. I would have wanted some more backstory on Dr. Fate, because there are different versions of him in the comics. Also, Hawkman, they didn't really allude to the fact that he gets reincarnated every time he dies, but again, that's for comic book readers. They didn't have a whole lot of time to go in depth too much in these characters, but it's okay, because for what they were giving us, I was fine with it. The action in this movie, really good. I also liked how this film stayed within Kahndaq. It wasn't a globe-trotting movie where they went to all different countries and locations. They went to like 3 different locations. It was all in Kahndaq, Egypt, which was great. And the soundtrack, also pretty impressive. And I had a gut feeling that because the character's name is Black Adam, they were going to use a certain song that I've had ideas for a while. But they used it very well. They used a very famous Rolling Stones song, and they kind of did like a Quicksilver-esque scene where they played this music and they did all this slow motion, action, explosion type stuff. So that was really cool. Overall, this movie pleasantly surprised me. There were a couple parts where I was like, oh, you can tell this is like a DCEU kind of movie, because they kind of held back on certain things or put in a couple tropes, but overall, this movie was really good. The action was awesome. Dwayne Johnson unflinching as Black Adam. Again, I'm glad they didn't compromise his character like I feared they would. And so, because this movie is everything I wanted it to be and more, I'm going to give Black Adam an A. So I definitely recommend this, guys. Whether you're into Dwayne Johnson as an actor, action scenes, a movie that's not Shazam in tone, not comedic, not lighthearted like that, or just a good direction for the DCEU to go into, I'd check this movie out. And yes, stay during the credits. There's a scene that if you haven't heard by now, we all heard about it, but I was like, I gotta see it for myself, and it still got me excited. It was really cool. And this movie also has a couple cameos from other DCEU patrons, which was neat as well. So yeah, till next time, guys. See ya.